Welcome back to Kentucky Sports Television. We're happy now to be joined on Skype by the voice of the Wildcats, Tom Leach. Tom, thank you for joining the show. How are you doing?
Doing well. Beautiful Kentucky spring day. I wish it would last through Saturday, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, it's nice of a day we've had in a while. And maybe not football weather, but I think a lot of people are still thinking about football, and that's just kind of the byproduct of Mark Stoops being here now. He's been on the job for 5 months. How would you assess those first 5 months on the job, maybe the things that you're impressed with, and maybe just the growth of the program since he's been at Kentucky?
I think the big story is just the enthusiasm that has been generated for Kentucky football. I mean, you saw it certainly manifested best in the turnout at the blue-white game with 51,000, but you're talking about just the buzz that's out there. I had Larry Vaught on my radio show this morning, and he said that everywhere he goes, people are asking him about this football recruiting and how well it's going and who they're going to get. And I think part of that is people have maybe taken Cal for granted a little bit. He's so good at what he does that, oh, yeah, he's just going to get another #1 class. This football thing's new, and there's so much excitement about what Stoops and his staff are doing. I think a lot of people are, very hopeful about what can happen. I saw a stat recently. It was a post actually on the MrSEC.com website, and they tracked NFL draft picks for all the schools in the league from 93 through 2012, and then they closed the window to like 03 through 12 and then 08 through 12. And what you could see is the decline of draft picks for Tennessee coincided with the decline of their football fortunes, and conversely the other way for South Carolina. And I think you look at what Mark Stoops is doing in recruiting, and if these rankings, if the players perform to their rankings, then Kentucky ought to have more draft picks, say 5 years from now, 6 years from now. And if they do, that should mean better football.
How surprised are you by this success? I think when he was hired, everybody was excited about the promise, but I don't know if everyone expected it to click this soon. Are you surprised at all about how successful he's been, particularly in recruiting since he's taken the job?
Maybe a little about just the guys that they're getting commitments from and getting in the door with. Certainly, the buzz that's been created is part of that. I think you hear a lot of these kids in interviews talk about the turnout at the spring game, so they sense that there's something that's maybe happening here. But clearly, there's more to it than just that, because they had a great signing day on really with a short window of time to do it. And I think that speaks to organization, to decisions that Mark Stoops made about his staff, and getting guys who could really get after it on the recruiting trail. So there was the talk early on about he came to Mitch Barnhart with a plan. Clearly, it looks like he did have a good plan and is putting it in practice.
Is that the biggest piece that you think that's been missing at Kentucky? I mean, there's been debate for years and years and years about what it takes to be successful in the SEC and what goes into that. What is the recipe for sustained success at Kentucky with the football program?
It's the same formula that's been the key since they started playing the game. Good players, and in this league, you can be. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, they're improving their recruiting. They're still not moving up significantly in the league, but the analogy I've used with people is that you can live in the same city as somebody, or you can live in the same neighborhood. Now, Kentucky maybe used to live in the same city as Alabama. Well, they're not on Alabama street yet, but maybe they are getting to the point where they could walk to Alabama's house.
And they're getting much closer, and there's still, so many hurdles to climb. But Mark Stoops has done such a good job navigating to this point. In year one, when it's all said and done, at the end of the year, if you're looking at this team, what would you determine as a successful year for Mark Stoops, whether wins and losses, anything happening on the field? What would you call success for Mark Stoops?
I think probably keeping the momentum going. Now, what does that mean in terms of wins and losses? Certainly, if they got to 6 in a bowl game, would be off the charts. But this is the most difficult schedule in the country, is ranked by some folks. So that tells you what the challenge is for a team that just won 2 games last season. So they have to be better. That will keep some of that momentum going. I think if they could do something that Kentucky doesn't normally do, maybe that's beat Tennessee again. Maybe that's upset a Georgia or a South Carolina. Maybe it's knock off a top 10 Louisville team in that early game. If they could do just one of those things, and then, however many they win, that just serves to validate the turnaround in Kentucky's football fortunes that seems to be occurring.
And it will start with the offense at the quarterback position, which right now seems like there are some guys that are performing well, or at least have shown some flashes. The latest being Jalen Whitlow in the spring game, and we talked about this a little bit on your radio show. It is maybe a matchup that a lot of people had Jalen Whitlow factoring into a whole bunch before that spring game. But when you look at this now, do you think he's the starter at this point? And how do you think this is going to play out before the season begins?
If it's a horse race, I think he's pulled in front at the head of the stretch, if you will. Right. Now they're going into the home stretch, which is the summer leading up to training camp, because I don't think they're going to want to let that starting decision linger too long, because from what I remember about covering this offense when Hal Mumme was here, it's everything in football is about repetitions, but this offense in particular is like a golf swing, just the practice, repetition, the same motions, and that's how you get really good at it. And so they're going to want a quarterback to get the majority of those reps with the number one unit, and that didn't happen in the spring as they were alternating with those guys. So they'll want that decision to linger too long, I wouldn't think. So Jalen, with his performance in the spring game, probably takes the lead turning for home. Now, what happens over the summer, because they can't coach them, but these guys can get together on their own with the receivers and the defensive backs and the linebackers. And so they can get an idea from what they're hearing from their players from those sessions about, is Jalen keeping the momentum going? Who's the leader? Who's the guy that's, taking charge in those individual voluntary workout types of sessions? That's where Andre Woodson separated himself in the quarterback battle leading into the 2006 season that proved to be a turnaround year in the Rich Brooks era. So, I think Jalen's got the upper hand right now. Don't think it's settled.
All right, Tom Leach, the voice of the Wildcats. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for taking some time to talk with us.
You are welcome.